Hello, Gus Williams, CEO, Bevan Buckland, and Georgios Dimitropoulos, Head of Media Suite. It's the Media Innovation Lab, Swansea University. My dear friend, and most importantly, this year is the filmmaker and director of the Master in Diversity documentary, Diverse Voices, talking everything diversity and inclusion. Thank you so much, Georgios and Gus, for joining me. That's episode 3 of my LinkedIn Live show. And first of all, I just like to ask you to introduce yourselves, because what I do not like is people introducing me because they read a whole I think it's not necessary. So you tell the audience what you'd like them to know about you. So let me start first with Georgios.
Well, hello, Bernie.
Hello.
Yes, hello, everyone. I'm delighted to be here with you today. And a little, a mini bio for myself. I'm an innovation incubator, technologist, and academic. So my background is in technology, especially in the areas of ethics, an area that fascinate me in the last 30 years, and in particular in the last 3 to 4 years, is ethics in a technological environment where there is advanced computer information. And of course, I'm talking about the latest buzzword, which is AI.
Yes.
But we can talk about this later. And aside from that area of interest in academic research, of course, it's surveillance capitalism, digital democracy, and diversity. Diversity, both on the human level, human diversity, but also biodiversity, which I'm trying to explore and cover in my documentary filmmaking. So I truly believe that educational video content and documentary filmmaking can be a positive force of change if we can be advocates of our current situation, presenting challenges, but also presenting solutions. So that would be my very, very short introduction.
Fantastic. Of course, you're a multi-award winning filmmaker. You are, at the Cannes Film Festival level. And I have had the privilege of actually watching a few of your documentaries. And I also had the privilege of bumping into Gus at the last showing at the Taliesin Theatre. Hello, Sadiq. Sadiq is saying hi. Hello, welcome. Let's get involved, Sadiq, and have some questions if you wish. And so, introducing Gus Williams. Now, Gus Williams is, as I said before, the CEO of Bevan Buckland, and he's the second year running that he is supporting the Master in Diversity Conference. And this year, he's decided to focus for us on representation, because representation matters. So, Gus, may I ask you to introduce yourself?
Hi, both of you. Hi, Georgios. So I'm Gus Williams, CEO of Bevan Buckland. We're Wales' largest independent accounting firm, headquartered here in Swansea, particularly dominant down in southwest Wales. My own personal background, so my family was Welsh from the valleys, Aberystwyth, up near Aberdare. However, I grew up in London, and I ended up most of my career was spent in banking, and I had the good fortune to travel around the world, including living in Tokyo for a while, Hong Kong, spending a lot of time in New York, spending a lot of time traveling around Asia. And I sort of quit that whole rat race world after returning to London in the 2010s. And I moved up to Wales 5, maybe 6 years ago now. I'd always felt that I wanted to spend more time in Wales, spent a lot of time here as a child, and I didn't want to be one of these people who just works in London and flies up to Wales at the end of their career. So my own, I have a couple of reasons for doing this. I think on a personal level, I'm also the chair of an autism charity, so I feel quite strongly about neurodiversity and some of those issues. But on a sort of both a personal mission and a Bevan and Buckman sort of mission point of view, we're constantly looking for opportunities of how we help the economic development of the region. But I think opportunity is really one of the key words for me. I feel that we've had sort of 20 or 30 years of a lot of missed opportunities, economically and socially, ways that essentially we can just improve everyone's lives. So I'm on a bit of a personal mission to try and advocate for and get involved where I can, ensuring that we understand and create more opportunities, particularly for young people, both economically and socially.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Gus. No, we are live, and so you know how it works with live sometimes. We do have a bit of an issue, so there's a bit of a feedback on your end, Gus. I don't know if you can have a look at it, right? But in the meantime, while you're having a look at that, Georgios, you mentioned about ethics and AI. Now, I believe that a lot of people are concerned about ethics and in particular how it relates to AI, this emerging AI phenomenon, which to our mind was something that just started recently. However, in my discussions with you and also watching a piece of work that you did, you actually showed us how much AI has always been with us and that you've been handling AI for over 30 years in different ways. So it would be, I'd really like to hear how your journey with AI over the last 30 years, being able to reconcile the innovation with the ethical considerations, and then also looking at the diversity and inclusion. I know you're going to go to biodiversity. I know you want to get there because that's your pet, project at the moment. But could you start with that, please, Georgios?
Of course. You raised some excellent points. So throughout human history, we've been experiencing technological advances, and we currently experience yet another generation, another industrial version. So I think it's very, very important that we explore and discuss. This needs to be an ongoing discussion to the best of our ability at all levels, whether it's on a citizen level, private sector, third sector, government. And the reason being is because anyone can develop technology, whether it's in the IT sector or manufacturing, entertainment, whatever field, area, or industry we're talking about. The truth of the matter is that anyone can develop technology. Now, what I think it's the most difficult conversation to have, to deal with, is how equitable we make this technology, how we make this technology fair, responsible, because at the end of the day, it's us humans that we use technology, not the other way around. So we develop technology to better our lives. And throughout history, we continue to see the same pattern. Technology is being advanced, more problems are being presented. And the more we advance technology, the more complicated these problems are. So to go to the matter at hand, what is being discussed a lot in the last few months. It's the issues, the challenges that a lot of technologists like myself and industrialists are talking about, which what is going on with AI. Is that an existential crisis? What is going on with bias in AI? Well, I would argue that we are at a no different stage as we were 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago, 150 years ago. But as we make our lives easier using technology, and more accessible that technology is available to us, the easier it is for us to be let's say mesmerized or at least on a temporary basis, momentarily, I would dare say, forgetful about the ethics at hand.
Yes.
So AI is not different in my mind that what we were talking about 25 years ago about the, for example, I would stay in the computer sector with the emerging technologies that could be software programs and all that automation at hand, Office, Excel spreadsheets, computer graphic programs. If you remember, all these years ago, well, not so long actually, but we had the same conversation. People are going to lose their jobs. This is unacceptable. We need to. A lot of people. There's always a dilemma. The people that embrace technology, the latest technology, and the people that are very conservative and very skeptical about it. Well, 25, 30 years further, 2024, we still have the same conversation. Are people going to lose their jobs? The answer is, and that is, of course, a speculation on my part, and anyone who attempts to make an attempt to answer this, is that, yes, of course, people are going to lose their jobs. Not everybody, some people. Most likely the people that are refusing to embrace the latest technology, whether it's AI or something else.
But can I just interject a little? Sorry, Georgios, and ask you, Gus, with your experience in the past, working in where we deem to be high tech countries, Tokyo, and all of that. What are your thoughts on what Georgios is saying there? Because it's interesting because Georgios has had his experience here and you have had your experience there and then come back to Wales. What would you like? What are your perspectives based on what Georgios is saying? Do you share his experience and his views? Oh, the sound is gone.
Sorry, you can't hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Very, very, it's almost like the microphone is I don't
Sorry,
know.
is that any better?
No, it's gotten worse than it was before. We can't hear you at all now.
Carry on. I'll get my headset on, maybe see if that
Yeah, get your tech people to have a look at it. Yeah. Are you using an external microphone? People, audience, this is live. This is what happens. This is what happens in the live world. We will pivot. So while Gus is getting his tech together, Georgios, what continue what you were saying, and then we'll have, because I just kind of felt when you were talking that we have a golden opportunity right here to get the experiences from two men working, and where Gus was, that the perspective would be interesting. But are you able to do now, Gus? Or are you give it another shot? No, carry on, Georgios.
Okay, so I'm trying to make a point, and that is that instead of having a renewed conversation every few years with the latest advancement in technology, we need to have once and for all a very holistic, honest conversation about how we use every technology responsibly. It doesn't have to be just about AI or machine learning. A year from now, 2 years from now, we'll have something else that will occupy the media outlets and the TV channels. And yet again, we'll be in the same situation. So ethics in technology is paramount. It's very, very important. We should not become slaves of the technology that we develop to better our lives, our manufacturing, our industries, so that we create technology for the sake of technology. Let me just bring one little example, and hopefully Gus will join the conversation very, very soon. Since we developed smartphone technology to the point that has been commercialized, and we can go back 15 years or even more.
Yes.
We have all witnessed that we cannot go by without our smartphone. I'm not going to dare say 1 hour. I'm going to say a few minutes.
Yes.
I mean, how many times? I mean, I'll use myself as an example. Sometimes when I'm prepared to go to the university, to go to work, it doesn't happen very often, but it has happened occasionally. I will leave my smartphone at home. And then I will endure the entire day, how many hours? 10, 12 hours away from my smartphone.
So that explains why sometimes I can't get you, Georgios.
You're absolutely right there. So the world is not going to collapse because somebody left their smartphone at home, but this is a realization and a wake-up call of how much we are relying in technology. And the more we allow this to infiltrate our lives, the more enslaved we become. And it's not good for our mental health. It's not good
and technology is good, and then sometimes it doesn't work. Like now, Gus, is it working?
Can you hear me?
Oh, fantastic! We've got liftoff. Oh, welcome back. You see, we've just got to live with it, don't we?
If you don't mind, I'll come back to what I started saying. So I think there are a lot of lessons from history around how technology, not just technology, but other sort of geopolitical and global changes impact the way we work and the type of work. So there's no doubt that AI, just as any other technology, may mean that some jobs disappear, but almost certainly it will create new ones. And I think the important thing from a diversity point of view, and Wales is sadly a really good example of how when jobs shift from one sector to another, how it can disproportionately impact certain communities and certain people within society. So I think the importance around AI, and I think Georgios, you sort of touched on this, is that it doesn't remove jobs and opportunities from one group of people and give them to another group of people. So it's important, AI is like, it's possible that AI will impact a lot of low-skilled jobs, therefore will disproportionately impact, more deprived communities and those sorts of things. So it's important when we think of the impact of any change in the world, whether it's technology, political, whatever, that where those changes remove one opportunity, we're replacing that with new opportunities to the same people. And the economic deprivation in Wales caused by the closure of the mines and the migration of heavy industry out of Wales impacted the community to this day we've never really solved or replaced. So I think it is beholden on all of us, whenever there is significant change in the economy or in the way we work, it's important that we make that extra effort to make sure that it's not disproportionately impacting one group of people who then remain margins of society for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Eve. Eve has just said, thank you for this very important chat on diversity. Yes, and if you do have any points that you would like to add, Eve, or anyone else, please do put it, we'll bring that in on the screen. But yes, you are absolutely right, Gus. And when you say that, I think about what I wrote in it. How long has it taken for me to mention my book? Not long. What I wrote in my book about groupthink and its impact on society, and how it directly informed the decision making around making, when the coal was the main driver, the main focus, strategic aim for Wales. And the decision makers didn't think they should diversify, and actually it is groupthink is blamed for the almost collapse of the Welsh economy because of the decisions that were being made that caused the removal of coal to have the kind of impact that it has had. And it has also been blamed for what's happened to the post-COVID decisions. So it's really important what you've pointed out. So yes, let's ensure that we don't make AI be the next coal.
And I think the important thing, this doesn't just apply to sort of diversity and equity and inclusion and those sorts of things. It's a question of for far too long, I think at many levels, at government levels, but a lot of businesses and organisations as well, tend to be. It's easier to be reactive than it is to be proactive. But I think for any organisation or for anyone to be successful, ultimately you have to try and look ahead and try and be proactive and get ahead of the issues or the changes or the circumstances that are out there. And that it's fairly self-explanatory that if you can be, the more proactive you can be, the higher your chances of success on a personal level, organizational level, or however you want to look at it.
Absolutely. And
that's the benefit of having these conversations, is try and encourage people to look at these things proactively.
Absolutely, and that's why we have more things like the Master in Diversity Conference and also the awards to highlight and recognize the people that are at the coal face. Yes, pardon the reference to concern coal. Every time trying to get this done. You were saying, Gus?
And I think what Georgios is talking about. Ultimately, what it comes down to is AI is out there. It's a very simple question to ask people: do you really understand what AI is and what potential it has and how it works and what the potential pitfalls of it are and what it doesn't do and what it does do? And the more people who can ask themselves those questions and gain that understanding, the better we are as a community or a group of people to be proactive and make the most of the opportunities and make sure that we're not left as a disadvantage, or we're not excluding people, or we're not just losing jobs and not replacing them.
Absolutely. And that takes me back to what Georgios had said before in one of our many discussions around AI and diversity and inclusion. And it's not rocket science, but sometimes you don't think about it. And he pointed out it can only be as diverse AI as what you put in it. Remember you were saying that, Georgios. So it's because we are the humans that are programming it. So we have got to contemplate and inform the various platforms that we use, the software, so that it can create a diverse space as well, an enabling space, and it might potentially help us to keep with that agenda, you know.
And the best way to ensure diversity inclusion is to make sure that we are giving people, you know, the knowledge and the skills to be empowered and to involve themselves and to make the most of these opportunities. And I think AI is an interesting one, because I think there's, you know, a lot of the news, a lot of, you know, what's out there is really around the large language model AI, the chat GPT and these sorts of things.
Yes.
But they are just one element of, you know, they're a very visible element of what AI can do. But the reality is, what AI is, it basically it's trying to mimic the human brain in the way that we process data. You know, so the fields where I think it's going to have significant beneficial impact are, if you think of doctors are a good example. Doctors, I think, need to train for 8 years, perhaps more, 10 years to get to a specialism in a consultancy. They have to absorb an enormous amount of knowledge and information, and they then have to process that with what they see with their own eyes to make decisions on treatment. Now, the point of AI is that AI can obtain knowledge from existing knowledge sets and then try and better use its observations and data to predict what will happen next and make good decisions. Now, human beings are only very good at that if we have a lot of education, a lot of training, a lot of time, and our capacity to make those decisions is very limited and very slow. So there's a huge amount of opportunity out there for AI, for better data-driven decision making. But we need to make sure that it's not another industry that creates opportunity just for one small group of people, or one small group of industries or businesses, but that, again, we equip people with the knowledge and skills about how potentially they're going to need to work in the future.
Right. So Georgios, how do you think we can do that?
It comes down to education and, as I mentioned earlier on, an honest conversation. But it has to start with education. I'm not talking about the traditional education, about primary, secondary, or higher education. It's the kind of education that informs people of the available choices of how we need to treat technology, of how we need to treat each other as human beings. So let me explain what I mean by that.
Yes.
So AI, at least in the latest phase, developmental phase of AI development of the last 25 years,
yes,
it started with car manufacturing. It went into other sectors of heavy industries. We've seen expert knowledge systems in medicine for, you know, at least 10, 15 years back. And I'm referring to pattern recognition systems. So it has been around for a lot more than people think. Advanced algorithms, which is a form of AI, has been around since the emerge of social media. And there's, again, it's all about pattern recognition. And every time we log into our smartphone or our laptop or desktop and we check our feed, then we'll see a lot of posts and news articles appearing in front of us. And of course, this is a direct, not an indirect, this is a direct outcome of how algorithms work.
Can I ask you, Georgios, can I ask you, how can we then is there a way that we can actually use this to inform the, say, employers in terms of how they serve their organization and create the kind of culture. How can we use AI? Georges, please, and Gus, because at the end of the day, it's there are so many different places that we need that AI will be used, and but there are also so many different places that we need to create that fair culture and to, as you say, the algorithms. When I do the going to large organizations, they have so many platforms now, but still they don't seem to be able to use those platforms to inform and direct them in terms of creating that fair work culture and so on. So can you, kind of include
Yes,
that in your response, please?
without being too pessimistic, things will only get worse if we do not have that conversation, if we do not educate ourselves. Every user, whether it's a child, an adult, or a senior, every user needs to be fully aware uh, of the things that we use on a daily basis, our smartphones, software that we use, apps on our smartphones. And it's not just about ChatGPT and all these large language models. I mean, this is what has been accessible on a massive scale in the last 2 years, but it goes a lot deeper than that. And that's why I use the examples of algorithms that, in a way, control our lives. The news feed that we see every time we check our social media channels, the movies that we're going to watch when we log into our favorite streaming platform. So technology is being invented to better our lives, but what we see as we progress is that it amplifies
Mhm.
the severity of serious issues, and it
Mhm.
could be from lack of diversity
Mhm.
all the way to a type of autocratic,
Mhm.
authoritarian
Mhm.
behavior. And I'm going
Mhm.
back to social media because social media have been using AI systems for a long time now. And instead of uh, seeing a revelation in the way that humans communicate with each other, we see uh, the traditional century-old or millennia-old uh, um, problems that haunt us over the ages, which is lack of diversity, lack of equality, lack of democratic mentality.
Yeah.
This is being
Can,
amplified.
can I ask? Sorry, can I just interrupt you a little because you're coming. There's so many key points here, so we don't want to lose it. Can I just get your response to that bit of it, Gus? Your addition to that bit before we move on. Don't forget that point, George.
Yeah,
You're making some incredible points.
I think the important point I pick out from what George is saying there is the magnifying effect. So
The
when
sound
we
has
talk,
gone again.
sorry, I don't know what I've done. Can you hear me?
Yes, but it's like squeaking again. I don't know. You were perfect just before.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what it is. Maybe it's internet connection. The weather's certainly not very summery here.
Okay, carry on.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I think the Georges talks about the magnifying impact. I think that's the important part to pick out. So when we talk about algorithms, within our brains we have algorithms. So for example, when we see someone for the first time, we'll typically look at what they're wearing, their hairstyle, whether they're smiling, and various other factors and features, and our brain will make presumptions around what sort of person that is and whether we would get on with them. And that effectively is an algorithm. So our brains have learned over years to judge certain things in certain ways. Now, the danger of AI is that the prejudices that we already have become magnified by that AI. So we only look at content that we want to look at. We only learn the things from a perspective that we want to learn things from, and it becomes self-perpetuating. So I think not just do we need to understand how the technology amplifies things, but we need to understand how our own experiences, and the way that the algorithms within our own heads judge certain people, judge certain situations, make certain decisions. We need to be conscious of the inherent biases within ourselves, and then conscious of the way that AI can amplify those biases in our day-to-day lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know Georgios was going to be going on into social media and its impact after this, and that leads what you said just dovetails right into that. But I just want to bring on Eve Oliver says, what 3 brilliant people to have discussing this important topic. CSG, send a hello to our wonderful client, Bevan Buckland LLP.
Hi, CSG. Hi.
Who we work closely with to support their IT. Fantastic. Yeah. Thank you for that. And then we have from Debo Obole. Hi, Debo. He says, though AI has improved tremendously, it still requires a lot of human intervention. For instance, it's still prone to mislabeling and misrepresenting a group of people, i.e. ethnicities. So that's a good point. But thank you for that. We love that. Yes, keep them coming. But Georgios, can you just now carry on now with the social media part of it that you were going to be going into, which I think this dovetails nicely into, and then we'll go into representation and misrepresentation afterwards, because I'll have you follow up on that. Thank you.
Yes. So I use social media as an example because everyone is using, or if not everyone, most people are using social media one way or the other. So I think it's very, very important that we talk about media literacy. And by extension, I think it's very important that we talk about digital literacy. So that's what I'm thinking when we're talking about solutions. It's fine. We can talk about problems and challenges all day long, and it's absolutely fine. We need to identify our challenges, but at the same time, we need to start talking about solutions and how to tackle these serious issues. So for me, the answer is media literacy and digital literacy. The more people are aware of the impact of technology, the better equipped we will be to, first of all, use the technology that is better for us, that is fit for purpose for us, to push aside technology, systems, applications, software that they're only making life worse, or these issues of inequality and lack of diversity worse. So we will be the judge of that, not what the algorithm is serving in front of our feed every single minute, every single hour of the day.
Yeah.
And then, of course, secondly, we as citizens of Wales, citizens of the UK, citizens of the world, will have the power as a collective of thinking beings with reasonable critical analytical skills to pressure governments not to allow technology companies, big tech as we call them, to behave the way they do without any scrutiny, without any agenda other than their own and their own shareholders. The problem we face now, we've never faced before as a species. Never in human history we found that there's so much power in the hands of a few big tech companies. And of course, I'm referring to the multi-billion level type of evaluation that these companies currently have. And right now, the currency is not euro or dollar or any other type of monetary currency. The currency is knowledge, information, data. And unfortunately, this is being controlled as we speak. And hopefully, your audience will not think that we are conspiracy theorists here.
No, I don't.
Everyone to read books,
Mm.
to have conversations, to realize that it's up to us to apply that pressure.
Yes. Well, can I just come in there because are you there? Sorry, can I just come in there? Oh my gosh, an hour is nothing, isn't it? Because we're coming into 40 minutes and we haven't even started to go into the representation. But this is really incredible stuff, Georges. You know what you said about media literacy and cultural literacy, that is so important. Cultural competency and all, and you know, awareness, being able to truly understand the diversity that we have and what it actually means, the cultural competency piece. But as you say, the media, because that is where the technocrats are, they seem to be in control. Eve, thank you for your comment. She said she visited tech camps at Swansea University today. Swansea University, Georgios, to see how we can support, motivate young people getting into tech and AI. Talks like this help showcase that. Thank you everyone for your chat today. Yeah, absolute pleasure. You know, the thing is that we that's what we're all about, platforming these opportunities to have conversations. That's what the Master Diversity Conference on the 16th of September is going to be doing. We have the zones dovetailing perfectly into you telling us now, Gus, about what you're going to be doing within the zone, the conversations you're going to be facilitating. Georgia's incredible contribution, fantastic. Every time I speak to you, it's like, wow, this man knows his stuff about so much of what's really relevant today. And, you know, I'm just so blessed to be surrounded by such knowledge. Debo says, data is the new crude oil. I love that. It is. So, Gus, if you would just tune in now, please. Yeah.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you now.
Fabulous. Oh, excellent. Okay. Yeah, I will just say data is the new crude oil. You need to mine it, but you then need to process it and turn it into something valuable. So in terms of sort of diversity, equality, inclusion, and representation, you know, I think where I come from this, I'm not. No, I'm not diverse under normal definitions. So people will often say, well, why do you care? Why does it matter? And there's a couple of things. One, I think it's important that we advocate what DEI really is, but also what it isn't. And I think it's also important for people like me to talk about it in ways and terms, in practical ways and terms that people can go away and think and act on it. And you know, I think we could have had a very good example. Sadly, England lost yesterday. But if we look at Gareth Southgate and the England team, it's a good example of what diversity, equality, inclusion, and representation both is and what it isn't. So I know, you know, anyone who follows English football will know that the one thing that Gareth Southgate has absolutely done is he's turned around the culture. Not just of the England football team, but the broader FA. And if you look at how he's done that, he set out very clearly that he wants everyone to be included. He wants all the players, all the staff to be included, all of them to have a voice, all of them to feel like they are heard, all of them to participate. You know, I think we've seen that really the best football of England for the last 2 weeks has been when the subs have come on. So that highlights the importance, the organisational importance of people feeling like they're equals, people feeling like they're treated equally. And then, of course, he's very famously, on a number of times, he stood up for a lot of the beliefs of the players. And again, this is a brilliant showcase of really how diversity can be important to organisational culture. Now, on the flip side, you know, it shows, you know, diversity and inclusion, those things, is not a panacea. It's not enough on its own for you to, you know, for you to create a successful organisation. It is just one part of your organisational culture. You still need to have a strategy. You still need to tactics. You still need to have a plan. You still need all of those things. So it's important that we recognise that diversity, equality, inclusion is not a solve everything mantra that we just need to dogmatically apply, but it is important. It can be an important part of creating a successful organisational culture. And when we talk about representation and these things, it really comes down to organisational culture. And I think the points and the arguments that I make around this is that this isn't a sort of a liberal nice to have, or it isn't something that's just altruistic. It isn't it isn't this whole notion of just being woke for the sake of being woke. There's a real economic imperative to this. Every organisation at the moment, and increasingly, is going to be competing to recruit and retain the best talent. And I think any organisation that employs people, anything you do that restricts your access to the talent pool is going to restrict your success as a business. So I try and talk about this message from a way that particularly people who are running organisations and running businesses can understand that these are important things for any organisation to consider. And leader of any organisation, it's your job to set the tone for that organisation and the culture of that organisation. And again, you just got to think about it. Do you want to be able to recruit the best people? And therefore, those people can come from any community, any background, any culture. So are you appealing as a business to those people? And once you've hired those people, are you creating a condition for everyone to contribute, to having equal input, to have a voice, and all of those things? And the reality is demographics mean that this is important for every organisation. The labour market is very tight out there, so that there's a basic economic argument on an organisational point of view to think about these things.
100%, because I agree. And to be honest, last year we didn't get him to attend because he actually was he had to be in Atlanta, the current first minister. But I actually approached him to speak at the Master in Diversity Conference because I truly believe, at the time he was a Minister for the Economy, and I truly believed, as you said, that it's an imperative, diversity and inclusion, getting it right for the success of any economy. Because at the end of the day, it's not just diversity and inclusion in terms of how people present and how they look and with the country where they're from. That matters, but it's also in terms of cognitions and ways of thinking and ways of solving problems, ways of coming at issues. It's a whole lot. You actually sponsored the Cognitive and Neurodiversity Zone last year for the very reason that you also anticipated that's just as important as representation as for any other part of anything that has to do with the success of a business. And now I've found that in doing audits for organizations, whether they're arm's length bodies of the Welsh government or whether they're the NHS or local authority or whatever, when I do my audits and I do my training, what they're asking for and what the focus is now is succession planning. The talent pool, focusing on talent pool. Why? Because they realize that if diversity and inclusion is not an integral part of your succession plan and developing your talent pool, then you will not get sustenance. So anybody wants to take up, comment on that?
Yeah, so a couple of things. There's, as I say, as with all these topics, there's a lot of things to try and cover. So a few quick ones. I think it's important to note that this isn't just a political issue. This is really an issue for organizational leaders and business leaders to get their heads around. I'm not always keen of it when it becomes a political issue. Anything that's publicly funded, if you're a publicly funded organization, your workforce has to represent the community in which you work. It has to, yes. Because those are the people who are paying their taxes. It has to be, and this is why I think the civil service and the BBC and the like will come into a lot of criticism. They don't always get it right, but this is why it is part of their mission and part of their entire being is to give voice and give work opportunities to everyone, and they have to because they're funded by everyone. And so organizations like that, diversity and inclusion, it's not just about enhancing the culture; they're part of their reason for being. And I think it's important that people understand that. And you can go back to the problems it causes when you don't have that. Certainly in Northern Ireland, a lot of the troubles arose from the fact that the civil service and government only employed people from one part of the community, and that created a lot of anger and polarization and hatred. So ignoring the sort of the public sector organizations who have no choice but to be more diverse and inclusive. I think any organization, it's easy for you to look around and look at the communities you serve. So you look at the areas in which you employ people, but also your customer base, all of the stakeholders in your organization, and say, do the people within my organization reflect the community in which I live, or the customers in which I serve? And that's the easy way to look at it. And then I think the secession point, and I think this is where some of the false narrative, but also some of the criticism of diversity comes in, is that if your approach to diversity is just tokenism, the idea that, okay, we appoint a few people to our board who represent different races or different communities, then all of a sudden we're diverse, and that's not how it works. I think the point around succession is diversity and inclusion, and your organizational culture is really built from the bottom up. So the people that you've got coming in at the bottom of your organization, the people you're hiring from school, from college, from university, the people you're training up, if you want a future workforce of the best talents and the best people, you need to make sure the people coming in at the bottom of your organization represent those different communities.
Yes, but can I also add? Sorry to interrupt you, because I'm mindful of the time. You have to just bear with me, indulge me. What we're looking at, so we bring them from the bottom up, right? But we also can take them across, because there are people who are talented enough to come across. And then the ones that we bring at the bottom, we don't keep them at the bottom. We actually develop them so that they can develop to become our successors. That's the whole thing about diverse and inclusive and sustainable planning. Can I just ask Georgios, if you can just come in for a minute on that, because thank you. Don't just hold that point. I have to moderate. Georgios, your thoughts on that?
Well, I agree with what Gus said. Spoken, of course, as a true leader. It's important that for any organization to talk about the organizational culture, the need for change, and EDI, of course, as a whole. But I would add something else into the conversation. I do agree that we need to go back to our roots, and we need to ensure that of equal opportunity. Of course, that has to be done in moderation and in balance. Perhaps in another conversation in the near future, maybe we should talk about what constitutes diversity and what practices throughout history, bad practices we need to avoid, because it's one thing to preach about something, but then we could easily head towards a fascist state, and of course no one wants that. So yes, we do need to have a conversation about diversity. We do need to ensure that especially from the bottom-up approach, from the pyramid. But what I'm going to add to the conversation is that we also have a need to train the next generation of leaders. Humans are social. We are social animal. There's no question about it. Our brains are biologically programmed to, and I'm not going to use too much science, but we are programmed to follow other people. And because not everyone can be a leader, we just ensure that at least
that is the importance of allyship, Georgios. That's it.
Doing the right things, and they lead the pack so that there is balance, there is moderation. So going back to your point about succession, training the next generation of leaders, I think it's as important. I'm not going to say if it's more or less, but it's as important as giving equal opportunities from the bottom up as well.
Awesome, incredible. And you've done is just opened up the whole thing about allyship, because as you say, not everybody is going to be at the top, but the ones who are at the top have a responsibility to influence a culture that is inclusive. And that what I just took off the screen that Debo says is spot on. It's that whole thing of belonging, that belonging piece. Because if you include and you don't treat equitably in an equal setting, think about that. You can have more than one person in an equal position, but not everybody in that same position is treated equitably. Then you have the feeling of not belonging. So I'm grateful, Debo, that you've that's one of my points that I make, and it's in my book. Yes, master and diversity, we go together or not at all. Yes. Now we have 5 minutes left, and I always ask my. This is incredible. This has been really good. We probably need a part 2. You know, honestly, because this is the start. Yes, Gus.
There's a long way to go in all of the topics we touched on today, so it's not over in 5 minutes, that's for sure.
Yeah, I know exactly. So we really need a part 2. But can you, Gus, I did say in the beginning that I would love you to just each of you, I'm going to spotlight, and this is your moment. I know you've said a lot of things, and there are some things that you weren't able to say because of time and me trying to get everything in. What would you like us to, in 2 minutes, what would you like us to not forget? Or what new point would you like to raise for us to consider? I'll start with you, Gus.
It's important that we don't just preach to the converted and talk amongst ourselves on these things. I think it's really important, and I have that beholden on myself and others, to go out there and advocate, counter the misinformation and the false narratives around this, and explain why it's important. And anyone living in Wales, part of this whole conversation is about improving social mobility. If you look at social mobility within Wales, it's gone down over the last 20 or 30 years, and that is that's at the root cause of a lot of our social and economic issues and underperformance in Wales. So anyone who thinks that this topic isn't important, I want them to think about whether or not they want to, things like social mobility are important, things like economic development, things like growth, solving some of the social issues. If you think those are important, then absolutely diversity is part of that conversation. It's not the solve all, it's not the panacea. There isn't one size fits all. If you're a small business in rural mid Wales, what diversity and inclusion means to you is going to mean something from a large business employing thousands of people within Cardiff. But it doesn't mean that it's not important. It's important that we go out there and talk about the practical aspects of this and why it is important and what individuals and people can do. And as Georgios says, it's important for people with a voice to show some leadership. It's really, I'm a firm believer that it's really not difficult in most situations to do the right thing. But it's important that people have a voice, do the right thing loudly and show that they're doing the right things.
Absolutely.
And give the right example to others.
Thank you. I've got to stop you there. Justice must not only be done, but must manifestly and profoundly be seen to be done. Fantastic. Here you go. Georgios, here, your turn. Let's go.
For me, education is important. We talked about the importance of literacy, and more specifically, anything that will help us build a better world. Let's talk about diversity, literacy, social, cultural literacy, media literacy, and even digital literacy, because that's the world we live today.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And that's almost a wrap from me. Gentlemen, please remain. Thank you so much. I'm Bernie Davis, founder of Master in Diversity conferences. And this year it's going to be on the 16th of September. And we've launched as well the Master in Diversity Awards. Please go onto the website, masterindiversity.com /awards 2024 and nominate your diversity champion. This is important. People are working really hard. They need to be recognized. When they're recognized, they'll get a platform. They might get funding. They will help them to do more work. So let's go out and do our bit for mastering diversity with intention together in 2024 and beyond. Thank you so much. It's a wrap. Goodbye.